All rise. You may be seated.
All right, you may bring the jury.
All jurors present, sir.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Fredericks.
Good afternoon.
Would you agree, sir, you started out your direct testimony by talking about Mr. Williams' PowerPoint slides?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Would you agree that that is a product of the PowerPoint program?
Well, Mr. Williams was operating the PowerPoint program and directed it to do what it did, yes.
So is your testimony that he intentionally stretched it out, is what you're saying? Is that correct?
Well, I don't know what was in Mr. Williams' mind, and with respect to Mr. Williams, he said it was a mistake, and I would certainly accept that.
And he said that, and he said he could fix it with one button, and he was willing to go back and fix every one of them.
Yes, he offered to have that done, and we took him up on that offer.
He offered to do it, and so he acknowledged it and admitted to it, correct?
Yes, he did admit to it.
Okay. And you had his presentation for weeks, correct?
I got parts. I wasn't really sure what Mr. Williams was going to testify to. I had pieces. They were taken back and changed So I had multiple variations, so I was unclear until probably a couple of days ago as to what he was intending to use.
And you've been doing the same thing, correct? With
No.
your presentation?
No, I have
Nothing
something-
to it, including your direct testimony.
Well, no, I'm something quite different. My exhibits are a little bit different than his.
In other words, you're accusing him of making an error, and you made an error too, correct?
And my error was, so can you please rephrase the question? I don't understand which
Your
error.
error was we had to take a break for you to adjust your presentation to this jury, did we not?
Well, the court ordered information to be removed from what I had, so we had to take a break to do that.
And you had to adjust your presentation in the midst of your testimony, correct?
Not because of error, but because of a court direction.
Because you don't make errors?
I did not make an error in this case.
So when you took the taser out, that wasn't an error?
It was unclear. I'm going to try to be very careful and cautious about the order from the court. There were words that were directed to be removed from my presentation based on a conversation here in the absence of the jury. When that was removed, on the same track were the words taser. So one of the taser ones was removed. I had to replace it. I just needed a few minutes to do that. That's not a technical error.
And PowerPoint is presentation software, correct?
Yes.
You would acknowledge that it has nothing to do with the underlying work behind it.
Well, again, it's the presentation that is being used to present a faithful reproduction or truth of what occurred. And so because that was an error and I was able to assist the court in understanding that was an error, it was corrected.
He said that he was trying to present the truth of what had occurred. His testimony was that was how he arrived at what he was doing. That was a visualized.
Well,
Is that a conclusion you're drawing, sir?
my assumption is he's trying to present the truth, and that wasn't done, and I apologize. I'm not going to... My assumption was he was trying to do that, yes.
So your assumption was he was trying to mislead the jury?
No. He was trying to present the truth and didn't have the skills to do so.
And the 17 feet, despite what your video shows or what Mr. Williams' video shows, 17 feet is 17 feet.
I'm sorry, you asked two questions. Can you rephrase that, please?
I said despite what your video shows or Mr. Williams' video shows, 17 feet is 17 feet.
17 feet is 17 feet, yes.
Could you hold on to this, please? Okay, so 17 feet, right here, 17 feet, correct?
I can't see your end, but
Held this in.
sir, I believe you. I can't see it, but I believe you.
And 34 feet is 34 feet, correct?
34 feet is 34 feet, yes.
Is 55.
Yes, sir.
Those are the distances not just calculated by Mr. Williams, those were the distances calculated by the Pharaoh, too.
I don't know.
And the best evidence for this jury to look at is not the PowerPoint slide, and not your stuff. It's to look at the original video, isn't it?
No.
I believe you also accused Mr. Williams of using Akina and Synthize and all of that improperly. Were you aware that in the timeline that he used to the shooting, he didn't enhance the video at all?
He did. The exhibits I was provided were an attempt to enhance. They were overprocessed. The images that I was provided were duplicate images, and that didn't happen in the original.
Were you aware that in the timeline that was shown to this jury yesterday, that he used the original unenhanced video that was unenhanced by nothing? I'm not talking about the dash cam video, I'm talking about the actual shooting video.
I don't believe that's correct. I think the images that I produced in the exhibit were from his timeline.
From the ones yesterday, he did other enhancements that were provided to you during this court,
That's correct.
during this case. But were you aware that the ones that were in his timeline were the unenhanced video of Santana?
Well, again, it kind of goes to the issue I had earlier was we were given multiple copies. The last copies that I was provided a couple of days ago that said, okay, this is now his final, it had the enhancements in it. So my assumption was that what I was provided as the final was what was presented yesterday.
Let's talk about the dash cam video that you took such issue with.
I'm sorry, sir, could you repeat that?
The dash cam video that you took such issue with, Mr. Williams, you said. Could you put this up on the screen, please? Okay, I'm just going to jump this forward. Okay. This is the original video provided to us by the police department, correct?
Well, it's the original data that is obfuscated in some part inside the player.
This is their play, L3's play.
This is
in evidence,
Yes, sir.
as provided to the state of South Carolina by the North Charleston Police Department, and it's got that cut off, doesn't it?
That's correct.
So Mr. Williams didn't cut that off, correct?
Well-
As you imply?
Actually, for the record, I hope I didn't imply that. Mr. Williams followed practices that are not acceptable by the forensic video community, because using the player, my peers know that's the inappropriate way to use the video. It's not intended to be used that way. So I didn't say Mr. Williams cut it off. He failed to understand what he was doing, so he did a screen scrape capturing the screen image, which is only partial information. So because of his lack of knowledge of the science, he missed 50% of the images and cropped and squished the images.
Mr. Fredericks, you implied that he was misleading the jury.
Oh, I certainly didn't mean to imply that.
So
May I
could
finish,
you tell-
please?
Could you tell this jury what was going on over here in the margins of this video that were so important for the jury to see?
Could I finish what I was saying, please, to
Yes.
the question? Thank you. The question was that I said that he misled the jury intentionally. Let me be clear for the record. I don't think Mr. Williams, I have no opinion about whether or not he tried to mislead the jury. I don't believe that myself. I think that it was an inadvertent because of his misunderstanding of the technology. So I apologize if anybody felt that I said that about Mr. Williams. I certainly didn't. Thank you.
Now, after you've had your explanation, would you tell the jury what was going on in the margins of that video that was so important for the jury to see and that they were being misled on?
Well, again, I'm not saying it was being misled, I'm saying that there's information that wasn't provided, it's not a complete picture. There's half of the images were not recovered by Mr. Williams. And so, as I said, I can't know how important those images might be to you, what other witnesses may be testifying about certain things that may or may not be happening inside the car. So I just want, it's important for the jury to know that this exhibit doesn't accurately represent the information that we were all given. So that's really my point, not that there's any intentional deception.
That's my question, sir. You've been involved in this case a long time.
Yes, sir.
You've been paid a lot of money.
I've been paid, yes.
How much money have you been paid?
I don't have a record of what my company has been paid. I don't handle those bills. I just turn my timesheets in as
So you don't know how much you've been paid for this? How much you
No.
charge an hour?
various rates depending on what we're doing. My technicians are, if they're doing a certain process, in this case, it'll range anywhere from 90 to, well, $35 an hour for certain computer processing, $45 an hour for certain other computer processing features, depending on how much technology in my office is being used up. Depending on which of my technicians is assisting me with certain processing, the rates will generally be $90 to $125 an hour. If I'm doing some reading documents and doing testing, it's going to be around $150 an hour. My testifying today is $350 an hour. Travel is being charged at different rates based on how long I'm out of the office, et cetera.
With regard to the timelines done by you and Mr. Williams, would you agree that your timelines are pretty much the same in terms of the actual sequence of events?
Yes, I would agree with that.
And you basically exactly the same except you use different clocks, correct?
I think that's correct, yes.
Taser times on yours is the same as the taser times on his.
Apart from the clocks, the linear time between events seems to be quite similar, yes.
And I noticed that in your presentation you were breaking them down by tasers. Is that correct? Or not completely correct, but a lot of it was by tasers?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And there was an initial taser, correct?
Yes.
And then there was another taser, and followed by a 1 second gap, and then another taser.
I believe that's correct.
Okay, so you basically had a 10-second burst would be your second and third tasers, pretty much.
I don't really recall exactly what it was, but that probably is right.
Okay, except you split it up between, in that 1 second, correct?
Yes.
Now, would you agree, you obviously can measure, would you agree that the fight on this video, on Santana's video, is very short? The visible portion.
Well, as a former police officer, I don't think a fight is very short. This lasted, I believe, you said the fight, which was an extended period, then you said the visual part, which was much shorter.
I'm talking about the visual portion.
Right.
What you showed the jury is very short.
Yes,
correct?
the segment where we have a visual record of it is short. Thank you, sir.
Okay. And how short is it?
Would you like me to measure?
Yes, pull it on up. We're going to ask some more questions about that.
It's east old that's east of beyond worries. Yes, right.
About 12 and a half seconds.
Well, that's also showing the part that you can't see on the video. I'm talking about the visible part of the fight or the struggle that you went through point by point with the jury.
About 12 and a half seconds.
Okay. Are you including that as part of it?
Well, that's contact, so I would, yes.
Are you including the part right in front of that where you couldn't see them in the frame as part of it?
Well, I'm counting the part where the camera, not when it's facing on the ground, but as Mr. Santana pulls the camera up to see the event, and we see the two individuals on the ground, I'm counting that point until the point where they get up off the ground in contact with each other, until the point where...
And that's both, that you can see. Not see, correct?
We lose continuity for milliseconds.
Well, let's play it, and let's see. Let's start at the very beginning. You can see him there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't see him there, and now you stop.
Well, we can't see him
Okay,
for...
now stop. Okay, how long?
Sir, you asked me a question. Let me answer it, please. You asked
I'm
me...
asking you to stop so I can ask you how long it is.
You said you can't see it there, correct? And I haven't been able to answer that question.
How long is it from the front of the first video to right
To right there?
there? Yes.
6 seconds. 6.5.
Okay. Now, pick it back up when you can see them. How long are they on the screen right there?
They were on the screen right there for 33 milliseconds.
Okay.
But-
Then you don't see them again until they're standing up.
No. You said how long are they on the screen right there in that one image represents 33 milliseconds. But there's a number of other images with them in there, so for about 120 milliseconds, roughly, so just over a tenth of a second. Then it goes off screen for fractions of a second, and they're back on in the same position. I think I understand your question now.
You know, my question is, if you continue playing this, the next time that you see a visible frame, they're both standing up, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so getting back to my original point, you can see the fight about half of that 12 seconds.
We can see it about half, yes.
Okay.
True.
It's not a trick question, sir. Now, when you were going through this fight on the ground, I believe that you said that there were 2 or 3 occasions during this 5 or 6 seconds where you could see Mr. Scott's feet up in the air.
Yes, sir.
Correct? What does that indicate to you?
I have no opinion about what it means.
Does that mean he's on his back?
Well, again, I have no opinion. Just, I've made the observation. That'll be up to other experts to assist in understanding what that means.
And if you would, I'd like to go to 9:37:53.
53:15?
9:57,
Oh,
excuse me, 9:37:53:50, if I wrote my notes down.
yes, sir.
Could you put that up, full screen?
Let's go to the exhibit that I used, which,
The same one you showed the jury during your direct is
Yes.
the one I'm interested in.
yes. Devin?
53, I think it is, and 15. 15.
Yes.
Now, did you have that in a blown up?
I can make
Or
it larger.
Is that as big as you can get it right there?
No, I can hit the extend button and make it
Can you do
larger.
that and still manipulate?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you would, could you just take us through that, do you have any opinion as to what that is between Officer Slager's legs?
Officer Slager's legs?
Yes.
It's motion blur, it could be his, this is the issue with predictive nature of compressed video. It could be, you can see that his foot appears to be missing.
Okay.
This could, excuse me,
Okay, so
sir,
it could be-
I'm sorry, I really do need to finish.
Okay,
my-
go ahead,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
This could be part of the foot that just hasn't had the motion vector to put it in the right spot. And this is part of the problem with compressed digital video and the issues of interpretation. I don't know exactly what that is, but I see that the foot's missing. And often in compressed video, objects will actually be in one spot and they'll be fabricated, they'll be moved to another spot. So we have to be cautious about that interpretation.
It could be motion blur, correct?
Well, there is motion blur in the picture, yes.
And it could be something else, correct?
Yes,
It could be an object, correct?
could be,
Could you run that through a frame?
yes,
Which direction is Mr. Slager's right leg going?
backwards. Or either backwards or to the side. We can't tell from this two-dimensional image.
Okay.
If he steps to the side, it would look the same as if he stepped backward.
But it was clear from the video that it was in front of him before and it is not now, correct?
No, that's not correct.
Well, go forward and then go back.
Yeah, so what's happening,
Is his leg moving?
excuse me, so you asked me a question, sir, again, let me try to answer it for you.
Sir, I'm asking you questions. And they're yes, no questions. Is his leg moving?
Yes, leg is moving.
Okay. Go to the next frame. And the next frame. And the next frame. What is that? Is there something moving right behind him now at this point?
Yes, the taser is in motion, as we pointed out, moving behind him.
That taser's low on the ground, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that taser is moving the same direction as his leg appears to be moving, is it not?
I disagree with that. This is a two-dimensional image. Because of that, we don't know whether his leg is moving outward. When it moves outward because of the angle, it would have the same visual effect of moving backwards.
But it's possible that it's moving backwards.
It's possible, but not necessarily true.
But you haven't been paid to say that it's moving backwards, correct?
My evidence would be the same, sir, if I were working for you, as it is if I'm working for the defense. So whether or not I'm getting paid doesn't direct what I'm going to say.
You remember being written up in the Spokane, Washington paper concerning the Carl E. Thompson case?
I do.
And you telling investigators that you first became involved after you received a request from Jack Driscoll, Chief Deputy to Spokane County Prosecutor, that federal authorities now believe Fredericks wasn't being completely truthful, having learned that he actively encouraged the city to hire him as an expert analyst by promising favorable conclusions.
Yeah, that's a newspaper. It's not true. The Department of Justice, who made that allegation, was my client, who asked me to fabricate the video. I hired an attorney, and we went after the Department of Justice, and went to the judge to tell them, to basically explain to the judge that I've been asked to fabricate the information. And we don't do that, and it became a bit of an issue in Spokane. So that was the response from the Department of Justice. The judge had a ruling and ruled that I was consistent from the beginning, and that that was a bit out of line, to say the least.
Can you provide us information about how much you've been paid, sir?
I can, yes. I can have my office do that.
Okay. And if you would, I would like you to play back this sequence back and forth again that we've just talked about. him by front. Let's go back and forward and back. And I believe on direct examination, you were asked about the calculation to the first shot, and you calculated it being 1.5 seconds, is that correct?
Was it about what I said was about a second and a half, depending on where you define which image the shot was fired on.
And would you agree that Mr. Williams calculated it to be 1.49 seconds?
Correct.
Fine, you have nothing further to say.
Any redirect?
Briefly, Your Honor. As part of your certification, have you ever had to take a course in ethics?
Yes.
And what did the course in ethics consist of?
Well, I had a number of ethics courses, partly through my police work, but with the certification training, we take a class from an attorney that deals with ethics, with responsibility of the witness to the trier of fact, not to my client when I testify. So when I testify, it's my duty to work. I work for you. I don't work for my client. I don't work for the prosecutor. And we also, in the ethics portion and in our other forensic classes, we guard against bias. We guard against a bias that may be caused because of our lack of knowledge of the technology. We have to be knowledgeable of the technology so that we don't make a wrong observation. For instance, the movement of the foot, whether it's going backwards or sideways, is an advocacy observation, depending on which way you want it to go. But really, the issue is this is a two-dimensional view, and if my experience tells me that if the foot were moving outward because of the angle of the camera, it would foreshorten the distance between the left foot, making it look like it's going backwards. So those are the kind of biases and our ethics training that we take.
So if the foot were moving to the left, or there was a side step to the left, it could appear the same way on the camera as the foot moving backwards?
Or forwards, actually. So if it were moving to the left because of the angle, it would look like it was going forward. If it were moving to the right, it would look like it was going backwards. It could have been moving backwards, but we can't really tell.
You can't form an opinion on that.
You cannot form an opinion. You can simply just say, be cautious about it.
You can say the foot is moving.
Correct.
Now, where were you 2 weeks ago?
I was in Ohio.
And what were you doing in Ohio?
I was testifying in a homicide case for the prosecution.
What was the agency prosecuting?
Oh. It was in Cincinnati. I can't remember the county. I'm in court quite a bit, so I can't recall them all. Sort of blend together, but
Could it have been Hamilton County?
I believe it was yes, it was Hamilton County. Thank you very much. It's in the Cincinnati area.
And you were testifying on behalf of the prosecution
Yes.
in a case of a officer-involved shooting?
Yes.
And do you still do any work for the Department of Justice at all? Are you associated with them?
I do have a couple of cases for the Department of Justice right now, and I teach at the FBI Academy. That's through the Department of Justice for the FBI National Academy.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick.
Anything further by the state?
Stages going sideways or backwards?
It's going backwards.
All right, thank you, sir. You may step down.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have today for witnesses. And we'll be in recess till 9 a.m. Monday morning. Please remember, you're not to be exposed to any outside information concerning this case, watching TV, checking the internet, etc., or discussing the case with anyone else, or allowing anyone to discuss it in your presence. It would be a disservice to the court and your fellow jurors to gain information and consider any information other than that which is presented in this courtroom. You are the jury based on your being here, and no one else from any other source is in the position that you're in. I want to thank you very much for your cooperation, your patience, and your endurance. And we're going to reconvene Monday morning at 9 o'clock, and we plan to not go past noon on Wednesday. So we're not going to interfere with anyone's Thanksgiving. Yes?
Just for scheduling purposes, we've been talking with the defense, and we may have some matters of law Monday morning, and I just didn't know if that might affect.
Oh, absolutely. We'll have them come in later.
I don't want them
And
waiting
these
around.
matters of law, as you all know, can go from minutes to hours. So, well, we'll say come in at 10:30. 10:30 Monday morning. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend. Remember, 10:30. I think I have time to park, but we can ride there and just stop at the door. I'm sure I can come back in. All right, anything else from anyone before we exit?
Judge, it was my understanding that the equipment that Officer Slager had, but we would have had is evidence. I just wanted to be sure that it's part of our application and evidence.
All right. Any objection to those items being in evidence by the state?
There is a can of hairspray in there. Substitute. Bruce wants to have that.
Let's say this one.
Your Honor, I don't see any
Email today. Great, submitted in evidence without objection. You'll have a good weekend, good evening, etc.